Premium Ford still strikes out. That's your neck of the woods there, Cal. What's happening out in Ontario that's important for all of us in Canada to consider and reflect on?
I don't think anybody outside of Ontario really cares what Ford does, but currently he's underwater. The Angus Reid Institute poll, the most recent ones, show that Doug Ford is polling at 21% approval rating. So he's got to
That's
be one
higher
of
than
the.
Trump, isn't it?
No, Trump's at 34.
Oh, geez, Ford's lower than Trump.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, but he's got the same response as Trump. He says it's fake news. So,
Yeah,
so,
sure.
so Angus Reid has demanded an apology, and I hope they sue his ass off if he doesn't give it, because it's about time politicians learn not to lie.
I agree. That's one of my sticking points is we're not getting proper representation when we have a house of liars representing us. I mean, that's not right. It's not ethical, moral. It shows lack of character. If you have to lie, it shows you're willing to do anything for the pursuit of money or power. And those are the wrong people you want to represent you. As you notice, it always benefits them or their wealthy buddies instead of helping you.
Well, he also has the typical response to that as well when he says it's fake news. But he slipped from 27% in April, so he's on a downward slide. And so his response is, and here's the quote: "I think it's a bunch of crazy lefties that want to protect one or two trees or three birds.
What a
These
moron.
people, these same people, mark my words, are going to be lined up to go to the Ontario Place." Now, what he's talking about, Ontario Place, is they used to have a science center in the River Valley, the Don River Valley, and it was quite a unique building. It went down into the River Valley from the top, and it's been there forever. And
Right.
he came up with a claim that two engineering firms said that the roof was in danger of falling, so that was their excuse to now move it to the what they're planning to do at Ontario Place. And of course, Ontario Place was a public place for people to go and be on the lakefront, and they're
Right.
going to turn it into a private spa. And so
Yeah.
to try to deflect from the private spa, they're going to move the Ontario Science Center to a smaller building there. It's all
Well,
the,
that's the same BS that they claimed that the roof on the Saddle Dome was ill repaired to give a $2 billion swing in profits to a billionaire for free at taxpayer expense, so they have more luxury suites for the decamillionaires and rich to enjoy the games without having to mix in with the peons. And people buy that bullshit. They believe it. They lick it up, and that's why they promote that.
well, they also, of course, want to do their own signature building, so you can be sure that Doug Ford's name will be all over the
Oh
new
yeah.
Ontario Place building, and it's it'll be his legacy, construction. But you have to destroy somebody else's legacy to build yours, just like Ford tried to put his name. Sorry, Trump tried to put his name on the Kennedy Center.
Right.
Ford is going to rebuild the Science Center, and I bet you it's going to be the Doug Ford Science Center, and of
What
course that'll
happened?
take.
What happened with that investigation into him selling all that parkland as well? I mean, that's over 1,000 days of RCMP investigations. That scandal is
Well,
being whitewashed.
when we're working from the present to the past, the recent past on Ford scandals, the most recent one was the jet
Right.
and the gravy plane, and the gravy plane was purchased for who knows $27 million,
Right.
and when it was sold for substantially less than that because now it's
Yeah.
been used again and it needed to be upgraded, and on and on and on and on, right? So it
Yeah.
was
We did a podcast on that for you folks.
yes, yeah, it was
Yeah.
at least
Might go
$29
to it.
million,
Yeah.
and that wouldn't have included the operating costs, the daily operating costs. So it was a joke. But
Well, he
prior to
also
that,
would have had contracts to maintain it, and that would have cost taxpayers, because once the contracts were tore up, there would have been buyouts and payouts, and he's made sure that freedom of information is suppressed under his government passing laws, so it'll be a while before you find out the real cost of those planes to taxpayers.
well, you'll never know. But the issue with the Greenbelt, for people who don't know, in Toronto, Toronto is just a big massing sprawl of people. It's got 12 to 14 lanes of madness called the 401. It's bumper to bumper traffic, choking, every intersection. It's a horrible place, and so they have, years ago they brought in a green space, and they, about 2 million acres, which is a lot of land, and
Big
it
chunk.
goes in a horseshoe shape around the north part of Toronto, and includes mainly farmland, river valleys, and parks. And the concept was to protect that for the future, and it also protects groundwater sources, all kinds of important ecological areas from being paved over.
Right.
And when Trump, sorry, I keep calling him Trump, when Ford initially
Trump
ran,
North. We can
yeah,
call him Trump North.
well, he promised not to touch it. He said that he wasn't going to touch it, but of course, what happens is, like everything else, some developers ended up going to his daughter's birthday party, and I'm sure there was a big brown paper bag full of cash someplace, because now
Yeah.
all of a sudden sections of the Greenbelt were opened up, and those sections just happened to correspond to his developer buddies, some of them recent purchases of land. I mean,
Reminds me
what
of
what
that conservative Mulrooney and his passing of money around to get the leadership, but that's a conservative technique, is pass cash around and get favors.
well, this one's even more blatant, in that some of the land had been purchased some time ago,
Yeah.
and as you can imagine, once land is locked into a green belt, the value is frozen. So
Right.
if it's a farm growing corn, your maximum return is just going to be whatever you can make off the crop. But what these developers do, of course, is they have their eye on housing developments,
Right.
subdivisions, or whatever, to make the big money, and to
Right.
buy these particular parcels in advance of the announcement that it'll be taken out of the green belt is like winning the lottery.
Oh,
And the fact is that certain individuals won the lottery over and over and over again.
yeah.
And the thing is, that becomes a suspicious circumstances when you happen
It's
to be at.
insider trading, at least, and it's corruption at most. And there should be jail sentences going along with that, because it hurts taxpayers and it hurts the environment and long-term planning for an area, and other people lost their investments that didn't get to profit from the rezoning and corruption going on. So personally, I think these people, and there's not just Doug Ford, there has to be other people working with him to achieve the ends that are the result of all this. And I think all these people should be charged and put in jail. And it shows that the premiers control the court system and the justice and the enforcement of laws in provinces. And the corruption we have here in Alberta seems to be going on very similar in Ontario. So we as the taxpayers need to wake up that, these conservative governments are lining their pockets at our expense.
It's all people going into politics out of greed. They're
Right.
going there to feed themselves and their friends. And the in 2023, the Auditor General in Ontario did a report on the Greenbelt swap, and found that certain developers stood to earn over
Yeah.
$8 billion.
Yeah.
$8 billion. Now, if some of that gravy fell into Ford's pocket,
Oh, for
and
sure.
and apparently the RCMP are supposed to be doing an investigation, but who knows where that's going to go.
No, it's
So
the province has control over the crown prosecutors, the judges, the all aspects of enforcement law, including where the RCMP reports go. So there's no doubt in my mind that after 1,000 days and no charges being brought, there is corruption afoot in the legal process in Ontario. But what I'd like to, like the viewers, you have to stand up for these, against these type of people. Doug Ford is not a broke businessman. He has money. He got into politics for more money and power, and he will profit after politics. So you have to start sending your best and your brightest, not your greediest and your wealthiest, because you're going to get exactly what we got, Trump North going on. And isn't it funny, like I'm going to change the subject a bit, but isn't it funny that Ford always, or conservatives always attack anything to do with healthcare and the average person? Like the personal support workers with the Canadian Union of Public Employees have gathered at Premier Ford's office lobbying against his legislation that is hampering personal support workers. Well, it's a high demand job with low staff profession, and why do they always target essential services to the sick and downtrodden? That's a question I'd like to ask. And is that your values as a voter? Do you vote for that sort of stuff?
Well, it's a bit of a crisis here in Ontario. For example, they closed the safe injection sites,
Right.
saying that they were harm to the community. So now you have, and I've never seen this before, is people on the street sitting leaning on lampposts and doing drugs.
There's people in Calgary too, all downtown.
There's people in front of the people in front of the supermarket begging for food as you come out of the supermarket. It's just shameful, and it's all part of the government cutbacks, because those people are vulnerable, and it requires money to service their needs, and of course the money should come from the taxing, and the taxing should come from the people who pay the least tax in proportion to their income, which is the rich.
Yeah.
It's and it's perpetual.
Well, even the top 20% pay for lobbyists to say, hey, we pay more taxes to the government than the rest of the society pays. And, like there's an article here, let me just pull it up and I'll give you some ideas on it. High income families in Canada are paying a disproportionate large share of taxes, according to a new report from the Fraser Institute. Well, the Fraser Institute, folks, is a conservative think tank that has political affiliations to conservative movements, and they're lobbying for the high income earning families, saying that, hey, they contribute 65% of the taxes to the country, when in fact they pay proportionately less than you or I. We can't buy down our taxes with our RSP contributions, so we pay 30, 40% taxes. They pay maybe top end, 10, 15% of their income, and they get to maneuver their assets till they can virtually pay zero in taxes, and yet they are hiring these tainted organizations like the Fraser Institute to make it sound like they're being harmed by tax policies. You should not pay any taxes. And therein lies the problem, people. You're being duped into this thing where the rich are the saviors of your job and your stability in communities, when they are the leeches and pariahs that allow politicians to get in place to gain more power and more wealth for them. And you're seeing it in Ontario under Ford. I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that this is really showing through on his party and policies. So let me know what you think in the comments and such. But
well, it should be either incredibly fortunate or suspicious that when you're buying particular property in the Greenbelt, before the announcement that that property will be taken out of the Greenbelt, and and we're not talking one or two properties here. Like one of the families, they got 70 different properties, different lots,
Yeah. And
and
the
they're in
people
different
that sold those lots to them, they didn't have the insider information, so they really got ripped off. Because had they known the value of their property, they would have made a lot more money, and the wealth from those transactions would have spread out through the community, and the community would have benefited. So it affects everybody, and that's my point. Is those are criminal activities. I can't do it, so why are these elite wealthies allowed to do it and not face prosecution? Well, they control the government, folks, and that's called corruption. And we need to maybe look at changing the way we have set up our government. And that's my point, is we know better, and I'm sure AI could tell you how you actually take the corruption out of the government systems, and it isn't hard. I mean, folks, if I was a popular podcast, I'd probably write more books on it and stuff. I keep saying I'm going to write the books. Well, I've done the research on it. I know what to make for recommendations, but why? It's falling on deaf ears. We have a hard time getting people just to watch our podcast. So why would I go out of my way to show what my research has found? It's up to you guys. I'm at the age I don't really give a flying fiddle what happens, other than I get to laugh at the stupidity of the average voter, putting these people in power for guidance over their pocketbooks, and your taxes keep going up and you keep getting less and less, and lo and behold, the wealthy are getting wealthier and the politicians are getting richer. So yeah, I think we need some cooler heads and smarter ways of doing politics.
Well, you'll like the fact that several of Ford's cabinet ministers resigned. One who was in charge of the housing, the other one who had close business relationships with one of the lucky winners. But
Oh yeah, did they leave the country to places that have no extradition treaties, like Belize or other countries? Did they take their money offshore and make sure it's untouchable?
Well,
That's the other issue.
The good news is the Ontario Provincial Police transferred its anti-racketeering investigation to the RCMP. The RCMP will at least appear to be more arm's length, but I can't imagine that they'll ever find any wrongdoing by the premier. I'm sure there'll be some lowlife somewhere they can stick with this. Now, the NDP is the opposition in Ontario, and the leader, Merritt Stiles, said on Monday that if they get elected, they're going to have an inquiry into all of Ford's meddling. And what they're going to do is, in the event that they find that anything's going wrong, they're going to press charges, is what they're promising.
Yeah, there'll be money transferring hands there too. There's really no political party that isn't touched by the wealthy feeding them. So,
well, to avoid the immediate ramifications here, the Ford government has made changes to the Freedom of Information Act so that people cannot ask for information. And that's because one of the newspapers got access to Ford's telephone records. And of course, they want to see whether he was on the phone every day, writing down which parcels of land these people wanted. But he managed to block that by changing the legislation. So he doesn't have to give his cell phone information out.
And he can destroy it.
Well, and the court ruled just as recently as last January that it had to be done. The related calls, government related calls, had to be released. So they're just passed the law, or in the process of passing the law, to say no, we don't have to do that anymore. So and when they did it in a late night session where they rammed it through, essentially without any debate.
Yeah, without any news coverage of it either. Keep it as low profile as they can, put it on the back page. Yeah, folks, when we're talking this stuff, it does affect you directly. It affects your pocketbook. And I mean, there's no excuse that, we're work slaves. We get up in the morning, we go to work, we work our asses off. We're too tired to care about politics. We go to bed, we get up, we repeat. When we do get a little time off, it's the old saying, when you got time, you got no money, and when you got money, you got no time. And that's the cycle of making sure that you can't follow the government laws and regulations and what they're doing. And I say to you folks that you should spend an hour a day keeping up on everything that governments and opposition are doing so that you're well informed and not relying on the rhetoric a week before an election as to be your guide to what's going on, because there's a whole track record that goes on in between elections that is very important to your ability to make sure you're putting the right people into politics. And if you don't follow it, you're blindly following their rhetoric, and you won't know if it's truthful or not truthful, because we allow lies in the media and we allow money to buy the narrative so that you are being duped into thinking things are good when they're really not. And I think that's something that we need to reflect on. I mean, viewers, how many of you guys follow the news on a daily basis? How many of you really know the ins and outs of what's going on in your own backyard, in your small community? Can any of you name your town council members? You might know your mayor and stuff, but I find that people don't know a whole lot of what's going on in their own backyard. Like, you people in Ontario, are you aware of some of this stuff, even though it's been in the media? I find most of them aren't aware of the intricacies in and behind the issue. And that's why we're trying to help out, give you some ideas of where to go looking. Don't take our word for it. The articles and news is out there. Go research it and fact check it. What's this thing Ford here's got? I see in there's some issues with his stance on trying to be the front runner of the boycott of American-made alcohol. I think there's a whole bunch of provinces banned the alcohol sales from the U.S., but the U.S. is now raising a fuss with Ford over, sitting with $1 billion worth of alcohol in their local storage in Ontario. That's a lot of American alcohol that isn't on the store shelf, and the U.S. is really pissed off about it. Is there going to be ramifications out in Ontario, or is the increased sales of local manufacturers of whiskey beneficial to Canada? And there's a few issues there. You'd know more about it out that way, wouldn't you?
Well, this whole alcohol issue started with Crown Royal in Ontario.
Right.
Crown Royal, the parent company of Crown Royal, had a bottling plant in southern Ontario that employed 130 people, and they bottled the Crown Royal. The Crown Royal was actually distilled in Manitoba, and of course, there's a bottling plant in Quebec.
Right.
So there's a picture of Ford dumping out a bottle of Crown Royal and promising, that he was going to ban, imports. But I don't understand his fixation with Crown Royal. Crown Royal is actually a Canadian, distilled product, although the company is owned by an American company, and it's the American company that took the bottling plant back to the States. So that's the issue there. But the bourbon sales have crippled the Kentucky industry.
Right.
It's literally crippled them. So at least that's one way that you can fight back on the tariffs.
Well, I mean, Alberta passed Alberta whiskey regulations to have Alberta on the name of being produced in Alberta. They've set legislation defining what Alberta whiskey is, but in this report, it also says that the alcohol industry in Ontario has benefited from not putting the U.S. product on the markets, and I think that's good for Canada because the selling of our own produced alcohol beverages is probably a good thing. It creates jobs locally, and it's something that we've allowed foreign companies to flood our markets with their products and not protected our own local businesses in the process. And that's what that tariff war with the U.S. was about, was protecting their industries to rape and pillage Canada. Well, I kind of like the idea that we say, hey, you know what? It's time we started backing locally owned businesses and Canadian businesses. And if the fight means we've got to, put up with the tariff and the tearing up of the CUSMA or NAFTA agreements, I think we've shown that the NAFTA agreement really hurt Canadian business. I'm, for one, that got hurt by it. When I was young, I was looking forward to it. It said we would be on equal footing with the U.S. We're not on equal footing with the U.S. as a business. If I get injured, I get nothing. Like if I'm a car accident, I get nothing for my losses against my peers that are buying up all the companies around me and competing with me out of the U.S. If they got the same injuries, they would get compensated for their losses for their lifetime in the tunes of millions. If I'm injured, I get, peanuts in comparison, and I'm set back in the business world by injuries against my peers, and my peers are foreign businessmen, U.S. So this NAFTA is really bringing down Canada as far as I'm concerned. We'll probably have to do another podcast on that, but back to the alcohol. Doug Ford had, when he got elected, promised dollar beer. I think Cal is still waiting for his dollar beer, and the prospect that there's $1 billion worth of alcohol sitting in storage, maybe Ford could give that away to taxpayers in Ontario to have a free drink of alcohol, or at least $1 worth of beer.
Sell it to the next biggest importer of bourbon.
Well, I think he needs to buy votes. If his popularity is as low as you said, I can see him saying, hey, all this alcohol that we have in storage is costing us money to store it. We better give it away to the taxpayers to buy votes. I mean, if they're drunk, they might actually vote for Ford to run the province. So his dollar beer concept might actually turn into reality when he turns over $1 billion worth of U.S. alcohol in their storage to you out in Ontario to drink and get drunk and vote for Ford. You think that's going to happen?
No, there's tens of millions of dollars worth of sales that the bourbon industry is missing out. There are other provinces in Canada that have not followed this example. But if you took, for example, the Ontario stockpile, it's already been paid for. It's come out of inventory. It's already been paid for. It's already been aged. Now, if you dump that on the market to one of the other consumers of bourbon, that consumer of bourbon is not going to buy anymore from the producer. So you're
that affects them more
that's right.
directly.
You're gonna kill another market that they have by dumping your product on them. So the thing is, the people in Kentucky, unfortunately, that's one of the Trump strongholds.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Ford's going to do that. I think he'd rather give away the alcohol to buy votes. That seems to be his modus operandi. And I like your strategy. I think that's something that Ontario should lobby for, is to take this inventory that's aged now, which means it's more valuable. Alcohol aged is more valuable. Take it and dump it over onto some countries around the world. Ontario is one of the largest procurers of alcohol sales from the U.S. as an individual buyer. I mean, $1 billion worth of alcohol is a lot of alcohol. To put that out on the market would recoup some of the investment that the taxpayers of Ontario did to invest in that alcohol. And I think that would benefit taxpayers immensely to sell it on the international market. And that should be brought out in the news that Ontario's selling that $1 billion to the USA's next largest buyer to impede the sales and demand even further. So I like your idea. That's a good one. And I just don't see Ford doing it because it would not allow him to offer lower alcohol prices to buy votes at the next election, and that's what's going to happen probably.
Well, he's got some problems because Mitch McConnell is apparently sick and that other bozo is dead. So, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting down in the States for sure. I mean, if two senators die, there's potential of a election before the November election, because each state has a different law regarding replacing the senator. Some can appoint a senator until the election, and other states you have to have an emergency election. And I think the guy that just died, his state has emergency elections. So
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham. Yeah, he's a real jackass in my books, but
there's never been a war that Lindsey Graham didn't like.
That's right. And this Mitch McConnell or whatever his name is, he may be not surviving his hospital stint as well. And that's 2 seats. And in the U.S., it's 49 seats against 53 seats. And if these are forced to elections, it could be 51 seats to 51 seats. And that could cause the impeachment process for Trump while they're waiting for the November election. And as a result, the U.S. could rectify some of its anal problems and their support of the corruption down there.
So during the 2016 campaign, where Graham ran against Trump, Graham posted on social media, "If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it." Now, of course, he said that Trump was race baiting, exophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that the men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for, he said. And now he flipped over to become a golf partner and, staunch supporter of Trump. And it just goes to show you how these people change when you dangle a little bit of power in front of their nose.
Well, it's more than power. It's all the money and profit that they're dangling in front of them, and that's the problem. And that's the same thing going back to Doug Ford. It's all the money and dangling of profits and such in front of all his supporters. And I mean, it's a team of people that pay for politics. An individual cannot run, and you have to spend, like the mayor of Calgary spent $650,000 to get elected. He's going to owe a lot of favors, and that's just what he spent. There's more money coming and going through his election campaigns, I'm pretty sure. But that's easy to show that, and that's only for a few $100,000 a year job, and his job is not even worth, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't be around $100,000 a year for the job he's doing, because it's a public image job. It's not a real work for pay job, and you're not really an expert in anything, so you're not a consultant. You're just giving your ideas and working with a team of people to come up with policies to get you reelected. So, you start looking at what's behind our politics and our political system, and you see that it has been paid and bought for by the wealthy, and it didn't happen just overnight. It's been slowly from the 1960s being eroded. After World War II, we had the idea that our governments were fair and democratic, and when that didn't line the pockets of the wealthy, they slowly infiltrated governments, slowly changed laws, and now everything benefits the wealthy. And I could go do a whole bunch of things how it benefits the wealthy, from the way they pay taxes or collect taxes to the way the average person has to pay up front on their taxes, versus the rich don't have to do that. The rich can self-insure. There's all sorts of things that save them money, and it's not a fair playing field is what I'm trying to say. And we see it reflected in governments like the Ford government in Ontario, the Smith government here in Alberta, even the Saskatchewan government, the same thing, where we're starting to see some of the governments having a little more rational thought. I do like the Manitoba government, and I think they're showing a lot of character and leadership for the rest of Canada to look at and see how, proper government should be set up for the people, by the people. And thank you, Manitoba, for your showing a beacon of light in a area where we're being smoke and mirrored and can't see anything. And that's something we should, look into more as to how Manitoba did it versus how we're being allowing of corruption in all the other provinces.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. 21% approval rating means that you're on the way out the door, and if you're hiding the facts, that's not going to help your credibility at all. So hopefully,
well, he's got enough alcohol and $1 billion worth of alcohol to buy a lot of drunk votes, and it worked for him for $1 beer. And go Doug Ford, go! He's going to give away $1 billion worth of alcohol to buy your votes. You heard it here first, folks. Let me know what you think. Do you want your free alcohol, $1 billion worth, or do you want proper government and less people reaching into your pocketbook? It'd be nice to have accountability and lowering of taxes for a change instead of continual going up in the price of living going up, cost of living, taxes going up. You've got to put the right people in play. I find it hilarious because I did run for mayor of Calgary, and I was going to bring $5 to $10 billion worth of revenue to the city of Calgary. And guess what? That would have lowered everybody's taxes to astronomical levels. And guess what? I'm the only person that ever said that and was willing to do that. And guess what? I'm probably not willing to do that now. And I kind of laughed that property taxes went up, everybody's taxes went up because you shit in my cornflake. I didn't spend money to advertise. I expected fair play. I didn't raise capital. I don't owe anybody favors. I just put my name forward. And that's basically all I did. And that's all I got in return because I wasn't allowed to go in debate. I wasn't allowed to go on the news. I wasn't allowed to do this. I wasn't allowed to do that because guess who owns the radio station, the news outlets? The wealthy. They don't want people like me that say, hey, we can do this. I will do it. It's my job. If I say I'm applying for a job and my job is this, I will do that job just as good or better than anybody else. And guess what? You gave me the big finger, and now it's me laughing with this podcast at some of the stupidity that's going on. So, Cal, enough about me.
yeah, got to get going.
Yep, you take care out there, and
Talk to you
hopefully
later.
you get your free alcohol from Doug Ford to buy your vote.
I don't think so.
You can always hope. Maybe he'll give you that $1 beer he promised.
Yeah.
Better later than never. Hopefully that's how he's going to plan to buy your vote. Give you your $1 beer. Okay, in the comments, let us know, share, like, any other subjects you'd like to hear about, let us know in the comments. Take care.
Bye.
Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and please share the video. Don't be afraid to share this commercial with your friends too.